Mr. Darryl David.
Madam Deputy Speaker, much has been done over the years to enhance the wages and working conditions of the private security industry. For instance, the progressive wage model developed by the Security Tripartite Cluster implemented in 2016 helped to encourage security officers to upgrade their skills and achieve productivity-based wage progression. Other support includes the joint guidelines announced by MOM, NTUC, SNEF in December 2019 on the provision of proper rest areas for low-wage workers, like security officers, as well as a $1 million work care grant announced in May 2021 to help facility owners set up new or upgrade existing rest areas for outsourced cleaners and security guards. Taken collectively, these measures have certainly benefited the security industry. Now, Madam, while we can institutionalize improvements in wage and work conditions of security officers, we cannot legislate social or societal attitudes towards them. In recent years, several high-profile incidences of security officers being physically and verbally abused by members of the public have been reported in the media. In September 2019, as mentioned in MOS Desmond's speech, a man was jailed for punching a security officer at Roxy Square. In January 2021, another man was jailed for punching a security officer after breaking through a safe distancing barricade and causing a ruckus at Jurong Point. And in a video that went viral on social media, a member of the public was recorded to be berating an elderly security officer and using insulting language on him when the security officer informed him that he needed to pay a fee for his friend to park his vehicle in a condominium after 11 p.m. These are all examples of utterly reprehensible behavior towards our security officers. Madam, in each of these incidents, the security officers were just doing their job and certainly should not have been subjected to any form of abuse. As such, the proposed amendments to the Private Security Industry Bill are timely and important. It is heartening to know that the amendments to the bill will strengthen the penalties against verbally and physically abusing security officers. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted everyone, especially frontliners, like healthcare workers and security officers. Not only do these officers need to carry out their daily duties, they also find themselves having to interact more frequently with members of the public than before the pandemic. A recent study conducted by SUSS and Union of Security Employees revealed that 40% of security officers have experienced some form of abuse, with incidences of abuse occurring more frequently during the COVID-19 pandemic. Part of the increase in incidents of abuse could be attributed to possible tensions that arise from the implementation of COVID-19 related measures, such as safe entry and safe management measures. While it is understandable that the public might be frustrated by COVID-related measures and are even confused in the initial stages when regulated entries into premises are managed and regulated, these frustrations and confusion should not be vented on security officers who are doing their job. Now, the amount of psychological stress experienced by security officers is arguably higher than that of the public, as they are now required to take on new responsibilities beyond just security work, and they certainly should not be subjected to additional emotional stress of having to deal with this verbal abuse. So not only do we need to safeguard and protect our security officers from abuse and harassment, but we also need to take care of their mental and emotional wellness too. So I hope that the government will consider implementing an industry-wide employee assistance program, or EAP, for security officers. Companies that have implemented EAPs have found them to be effective in promoting mental and physical well-being of their employees. The positive impacts of EAPs include lowered absenteeism and turnover, improved well-being and productivity. And the EAPs for security industry can be a permanent feature, spearheaded by the industry association and union, to provide an additional layer of support for security officers. Madam, at present, there are several different models for the employment of security officers. Most companies have chosen to outsource their security services to providers. Others continue to hire their security officers directly as their employees to maintain a stronger control over the training and deployment of these officers. The latter approach could possibly be adopted by public service organizations if these organizations wish to have stronger oversight over the provision of security services on their premises. The amendments to the bill have made a special provision which stated that an individual would be covered by Section 6(5) of the Protection from Harassment Act, but not the Private Security Industry Bill, if he or she is also a public service worker. Now, this could have implications for security officers who are hired directly by public service agencies if the penalties under the Protection from Harassment Act and other existing legislation are different from those covered by the amendments to the Private Security Industry Bill. I would just like to see clarification as to why and how the bill differentiates between the two groups of security officers who are essentially carrying out the same job functions and are facing similar levels of job risk. Will this lead to a differentiated level of protection based on employers and employment arrangements? And if so, would the government consider aligning the penalties to ensure parity for all security officers, regardless of the institution and organization they are working for, and whether they are outsourced or direct hire staff? While this bill has introduced additional protection for security officers from physical and verbal abuse, I would like to propose that we consider additional legislation to further enhance the working conditions of security officers. For instance, instead of having guidelines on rest areas for security officers, can the government consider mandating the minimum standards for rest areas in the same way that the government has mandated minimum standards for foreign worker dormitories? Also, given that the security landscape is getting more complex due to the multi-dimensional safety and security threats that we now face, would the government consider introducing incentives to support security companies to send their officers for enhanced training and reskilling to combat evolving threats of terrorism, managing safety and security in the post-COVID world, and to familiarize themselves with artificial intelligence and other forms of security surveillance technologies? Madam, I believe these additional proposed measures will help to enhance the work conditions of security officers, enhance the attractiveness of the industry, and thus improve the overall standards of the security industry. Madam Deputy Speaker, my clarifications notwithstanding, I conclude my speech in firm support of the bill.